guys. So you know how there's all those Reddit videos on YouTube? Just like you can't even do anything without them popping up? Well, I'm gonna try one. So I'm gonna make a series called Reddit on Reddit. Reddit on Reddit. So yeah, I'm starting out with a pro revenge story. Hope you enjoy. July of 2002, when I was 16, our neighbor who was a brat with a capital C decided she wanted to have a satellite TV installed. The house she lived in had a very small yard in back, smaller in front, and the fence that my mother had installed a couple of years ago was only about 5 yards from her side door. The only place the satellite could be installed was on the back of the house, but there was no way the vehicles could make it to the backyard. So, in her infinite wisdom, Brat decided to have them tear down our fence and drive our property to get to her backyard. This starts a huge fight between her and my mother. Brat tries to claim that Mom built the fence too close to her house anyway, and Mom produced the land description to prove that the fence was in the right spot. Turns out they were both wrong. We knew the woman had built her house too close to the property line, but it seems it was closer than we thought. She was only feet from the line. That fence should have been almost touching the side of her house. Her uncle was the deputy mayor of our small 2,000 population town, and she tried to get him involved. Nothing came of it, so we thought it was over. Late September, early October that same year, while I was in school, Mom was taking a shower when our 2 dogs alerted her that someone was at the door. She put on a bathrobe and went to see the police chief and a dozen officers on our lawn, claiming they've been tipped off to a meth lab on the property and demanded to be allowed to search. Mom realized that Brat must have been the one to call them, as the chief of police was known to be a personal friend to her family. Mom demanded a search warrant, and they didn't have one, which triggered several hours of them refusing to leave until they searched the property. This started around 9 or 10 in the morning. Nearing 3 p.m., Mom tells them she needs to pick me up from school and take me to her mother's house because I couldn't drive yet. They refuse to move their vehicles and let her leave and say it's fine. They'll send a squad car to pick me up, which would have just humiliated me. Mom calls her lawyer, who informs her that if they don't produce a warrant to tell them to leave. Wait, what? That they don't tell her to leave. So, the chief tells her if he goes for a warrant, he'll tell them he'll tell whoever issues them that he will smell. Dang it. This is worded weird. He'll tell whoever issues them that he can smell meth on the property and will be given a warrant for anything he asks for. He will then return, kick our door out of the frame, and if our dogs even look at him for that, he'll shoot both of them in the head and kill them both. Yes, he actually said that to my mother. Mom called Grandma to pick me up from school nearly an hour after it let out and let the police search the house. They find my mom's gun safe. This safe was one of those made of steel with a circular lock, kind of like on a soda machine, and had the key sitting on top of it. Before anyone says how unsafe it was just my mom and stepdad in the house most of the time. I was an only child who lived with my grandparents and only visited on weekends, and my mom kept the door to her room locked with a key. There was no way anyone under 18 was getting near her safe. The cops proceeded to take a crowbar and pry the safe open, even though the key is right there, and it's clearly the key to the safe. They then take the guns outside and divide them up. They even take my mom's handgun, which she has a concealed carry permit for. This continued for hours until my mom relented and opened my stepdad's shop building. He was using it to house his motorcycle while he slowly restored it from a wreck about 15 years ago. They barely got over to the threshold of the door before screaming, "Meth lab!" and pointed at the cleaning agents and bottles that were all scooted together. Nothing else. No other signs of meth other than some cleaning agents and empty mason jars sitting near one another. They brought out heavy spot lamps and more cops. By 1 in the morning, my mom had been sitting outside in the cool fall weather in nothing but a bathrobe the entire time. They claimed to have found a marijuana plant behind our 6-foot-tall privacy fence that kept people from seeing us in our hot tub. When I found out about this, I was upset. I was 16 and went to a school in a small town. Everyone would know about it. The next day, Saturday, I was piddling around the internet when a friend messaged me to ask what had happened and why my mother was in jail. My mother was not in jail. Friend: my mom said it's on the news right now. Mom and stepdad, last name, were sitting in jail this weekend without bond for running the largest drug den in your town's history. When Mom called the news to ask them why they ran that story without checking, they apologized and said they'd be contacted by town police and were told to run the story. The next night, they issued a public apology for it. I refused to go to school that Monday. It's very important to note that I had not been in school since Friday. On Tuesday, when my grandma dropped me off, the drug-sniffing dog was at the school. However, it was close to drug-free week, and I thought nothing of it. My business teacher told me she had seen the article in the local paper, and that it looked like it had been staged. And if I caught any crap for it, to let her know. I went to my locker as the officer walked out of the same hallway, but since that was the hall the principal's office was on, I didn't think anything of it. I noticed a locker standing completely open, and when I got to it, I realized it was my locker. I blew up on the principal. I understand now that it's not my property and the school can authorize it being searched, but this was such bullcrap. Why was I being searched? Principal: no, you weren't searched. You must have just left your locker open last night. Me: friend 1 and friend 2 have their lockers next to mine, and they have basketball practice until 4. They shut my locker if I leave it open. I haven't been here since Friday. Are you telling me that everyone in the school left their lockers standing open for all of Monday? I called my mom, and I was pulled out of school for Tuesday as well. Ultimately, the charges were thrown out because of that marijuana plant. The chief of police put in his official report that it had been 8 feet tall. And when questioned about it, they tried to press some drug charges on my mom that he clearly said, "Yes, Your Honor, it was 8 feet tall." The judge asked him when he found it, and he said about 1 a.m. The judge said there really been a marijuana plant that was 8 feet tall behind a 6-foot-tall fence. He would not have needed to demand permission to search the property. The charges were thrown out. And that's where it stood for 10 years. Mom waited and played the long game because she wanted to make fully sure that the statute of limitations ran out. She didn't want to give them any legal reason to retaliate against her. She waited and waited. Then, on the first town council meeting after the statute ran out, she made contact with one of the council members. In a small town, you don't frick with the council members. Everyone knows them, and everyone listens to them, or they do here at least. It was the head of the council, too. This was the head of the council, too. At the time, his grandson was my coworker, so he knew me and liked me well since I worked for the largest business in our area. He listened to Mom's story and told her that the last he'd heard, there was nothing in the evidence locker at the station at the moment, meaning none of the guns he had confiscated had been entered. When she told him most of the belongings belonged to me, and they were basically family heirlooms, he nodded and asked her if he could produce those guns, and she said they belonged to us. Mom had a notebook of descriptions of the guns, their serial numbers on the hunting rifles that had scopes, and the 2 of them had distinguishing marks that were hidden from sight, but she could find them and show them off, because my mom loved having a paper trail and everything. He told her that he would get them back by Monday. We found out that he went to the station and told the same police chief that because they had never successfully charged us with any crime, and now that the statute of limitations had run out, all of the confiscated property had to be turned back over to us. But there was a rumor that guns weren't in evidence. He would be in on Monday to have it checked. The police chief went pale, and on Monday, they were all in the evidence locker. However, one of them was missing a scope. It came out somehow that the chief of police was never intended to have them into evidence and had sold them to his friends. He'd been thinking that he got away with it for a decade until my mom turned back up with the proof that they belonged to her and legally now had to be returned. He had to go and buy back every one of them, sometimes paying more than twice of what he had paid because he had been paid because some of these friends had not been speaking to him for a very long time. And one of them had taken the scope off a while back. He was immediately fired and arrested for it. We got our guns back. Edit. For those wondering, my mom did consider taking more drastic measures against the town for what happened, especially as we did suffer harassment from the people over it. However, her lawyer advised me that we got one of the best outcomes: return of property, and the corrupt police chief arrested. There was little else we could do. As for the whatever that is, Brat, she never got her satellite TV installed as far as I know. She ended up selling the house and the property anyway, and we bought it. It had originally been part of our property, but now my great uncle had sold it for years and years before we tore the house down. Thank you for all the votes and the gold.